Hmm. Hmm. Gem, what time is it? No, it's just... Why are you awake? Are you alright? Did something wake you up? I see. Is there anything I can do to help? I'm pretty experienced in this sort of thing. Well, that's one way to tire you out, but I can't say that'd be conducive to getting a full night's sleep. At least, not in my experience. You know, I've got quite a bit of experience with not being able to sleep. Insomnia, being woken up by the littlest things, and then spending the rest of the night chasing sleep. Not so much now, but when I was younger, yes. Many sleepless nights. As a kid, my parents weren't around much, or at all, really. My grandmother raised me, as you know. My parents were always traveling for work. At least, that's what grandmother always said. I never particularly believed her, though. They didn't act much like they wanted to play happy family on the rare occasions they were home. Anyway, I spent most of my childhood living in my grandmother's home when she was still working in research. It was always a very warm environment, despite what my grandmother's demeanor might lead you to believe. I rarely had trouble sleeping in my bedroom there. But when they were in town, my parents, I would stay with them, usually only for a few days at a time. Even though, by all accounts, my parents' home was my home too. I had my own room there and everything. It always felt like sleeping in a stranger's room, in a stranger's bed. Oh, Gem, it's alright. It wasn't painful, more awkward, like when a distant relative recognizes you and acts familiar, but you have no clue who they are. If anything, I think I was more bothered as a kid by the fact that I wasn't bothered by their absence. Besides, I think those long, sleepless nights they were what awakened my love of books. It was. It definitely was. The crinkle of the pages in a dark room with only a flashlight to read by. The smell of the ink. The way the words transported me to another world. It was comforting in an uncomfortable situation. Anyway, I've been chasing rabbits. All of this was to say that grandmother always had so many books lying around. Yes, I would say that's where I get it from. She'd pack several in my bag when I'd leave for their house, and as I got older, the habit stuck. Whenever I couldn't sleep, no matter where I was, I'd pull a book out and let it take me away. I'd read the same stories as before, and that same feeling of comfort, it would ease me to sleep. Would you like me to read you something? Do you think it would help? What would you like to hear? I can grab a little of everything. A variety. There. I'm going for the whole experience, so I'll just use a little flashlight. Are you comfortable? Good. Just close your eyes and let me be your guide into dreamland. This is actually a sort of homemade book. It's just a collection of some of my favorite poems that I put together in an old notebook. It's nothing special, but I like it. Let's see. Here's one. No man is an island, entire of itself. Every man is a piece of the continent, a part of the main. If a clod be washed away by the sea, Europe is the less, as well as if a promontory were, as well as if a manor of thy friends, or of thine own were. Any man's death diminishes me, because I am involved in mankind, and therefore never send to know for whom the bell tolls. It tolls for thee. It's oddly comforting to know that we all will face the same fate in the end. That no one is more important than another, that we're all just one piece of the puzzle, but at the same time, we're all equally necessary to complete it, right? Let's see. Oh, I always loved this one. How do I love thee? Let me count the ways. I love thee to the depth and breadth and height my soul can reach when feeling out of sight. For the ends of being an ideal grace, I love thee to the level of every day's most quiet need by sun and candlelight. I love thee freely as men strive for right. I love thee purely as they turn from praise. I love thee with the passion put to use in my old griefs and with my childhood's faith. I love thee with a love I seemed to lose with my lost saints. I love thee with the breath, smiles, tears of all my life. And if God choose, I shall but love thee better after death. This was always the kind of love I fantasized about when I was younger. That wholehearted, gut-wrenching, almost painful love. Oh, here we go. There will come soft rains and the smell of the ground, and swallows circling with their shimmering sound, and frogs in the pools singing at night, and wild plum trees in tremulous white. Robins will wear their feathery fire, whistling their whims on a low fence wire, and not one will know of the war, not one will care at last when it is done, not one would mind, neither bird nor tree, if mankind perished utterly, and spring herself, when she woke at dawn, would scarcely know that we were gone. It's a bit dark as far as humanity is concerned, but beautiful imagery. Oh, this one is a classic. Not that the others aren't, but whose woods these are, I think to know. His house is in the village, though. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. My little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near, between the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year. He gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there is some mistake. The only other sounds the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. Poets do love including grim themes in their otherwise pleasant and peaceful works, although maybe grim isn't quite the right word to use here. Maybe pensive? Oh, this one. I read this one quite a lot after my first breakup. A very bittersweet poem. The time will come when, with elation, you will greet yourself arriving at your own door, in your own mirror, and each will smile at the other's welcome and say, "Sit here, eat." You will love again the stranger who was yourself. Give wine, give bread, give back your heart to itself, to the stranger who has loved you all your life, whom you ignored for another, who knows you by heart. Take down the love letters from the bookshelf, the photographs, the desperate notes. Peel your own image from the mirror. Sit, feast on your life. This, I feel like it could easily be applied to more than a romantic relationship, you know? Just the idea of relearning how to love your own company, looking into the mirror and feeling happy to see the person looking back at you. It's a beautiful sentiment. This one holds a special place in my heart. It reminds me of my grandmother. Well, you'll see. When I am an old woman, I shall wear purple, with a red hat which doesn't go and doesn't suit me. And I shall spend my pension on brandy and summer gloves and satin sandals, and say we've no money for butter. I shall sit down on the pavement when I'm tired and gobble up samples in shops and press alarm bells, and run my stick along the public railings and make up for the sobriety of my youth. I shall go out in my slippers in the rain and pick flowers in other people's gardens and learn to spit. You can wear terrible shirts and grow more fat and eat 3 pounds of sausages at a go, or only bread and pickle for a week, and hoard pens and pencils and beer mats and things in boxes. But now we must have clothes that keep us dry, and pay our rent, and not swear in the street, and set a good example for the children. We must have friends to dinner and read the papers. But maybe I ought to practice a little now, so people who know me are not too shocked and surprised when suddenly I am old and start to wear purple. I think that's a nice place to stop with that book, Let's see. What else do I have here? I kind of just grabbed the first ones I saw, so I have no clue. Oh, this looks interesting. The Little Nothing. A baby is on the way. The family that lives in the house number 47 needs more space. Thus, they have decided to move into a bigger place, just a few houses down the road. Toby, the family cat, has disappeared. But besides that, they didn't forget anything. Nothing, really. The little thing lying up in the attic of number 47, looks incredibly sad. It has laid in the dark, squished underneath old junk for so long it can barely remember anything. It doesn't remember what it feels like when the sun shines, or how to stand on its legs. Not even its own name comes to it. Who am I actually? It desperately tries to recollect. Then comes the day the family is moving. Again and again, the little thing hears clattering and rumbling from the rooms underneath. Footsteps coming and going loudly and quietly. Eventually, the door to the attic bursts open as well. Strong hands grab old things to put into large boxes. The little thing feels the weight which has been resting upon it lighten. Suddenly, the bright glare of a flashlight hits its eyes. "Oh, what have we here?" asks a voice. "That's nothing," grumbles another. "Nothing at all. Let the new people throw it away." Then it is dark again. The boxes are carried outside, and shortly after the entrance door falls shut, the house number 47 is empty. So that is what I'm called, thinks the little thing. Nothing. For the first time in a long time, the little nothing raises its head. It looks around and sees a spider and a few rays of bright moonlight in the dusty air. Suddenly, it hears quiet, scuttling footsteps. A mouse is running towards it. "New people always try to get rid of you," she says without introducing herself. She stares at little nothing's face. "I've seen you stuck under the rug. Who are you?" "Nothing," replies nothing. "Well, it doesn't matter," remarks the mouse. "Anyway, you can't stay here when the new people arrive." And she scurries away. The little nothing jumps to its feet. Its legs are still a bit wobbly, but it follows the mouse's dusty footprints. She halts before a bright crack in the roof. "Through here," she whispers, "and good luck." Nothing watches the mouse's swirling tail disappear between two floorboards. "I used to have a tail once too," it suddenly thinks. "I'm sure of it." What do you think? How would you feel if you had been trapped somewhere in the dark for such a long time, and then you crawl outside through a small hole, and suddenly you are sitting under a star-filled sky? Of course, such a feeling cannot be described, so I won't even try to say how the little nothing felt, except that for a long time it just sits on the roof and looks at the moon and the stars. Then it gets up and walks along the gutter. But since it is still looking up at the stars in the sky, it suddenly loses the ground underneath its feet and drops down a rain pipe. The little nothing tumbles down the pipe and comes to a rough stop in the garden next to the rubbish bins. Confused, it glances around. "Just who are you?" a raspy voice asks. It's a fox, rummaging the trash for food. "I am nothing," it replies. The fox sniffs him curiously. His whiskers tickle. His ears are scratchy. "I used to have whiskers and ears once too," Nothing suddenly thinks. "I'm sure of it." "Nothing," scoffs the fox. "There's really nothing to eat on that." and with quiet steps he disappears in the garden. The little nothing goes a bit further into the garden and arrives at a small lily pad-filled pond. There, on one of the leaves, a frog sits and croaks happily. As nothing gets closer, it jumps and dives head first into the water. Nothing just barely sees its striped legs go under. I used to have stripes once too, Nothing suddenly remembers. I am sure of it. Once the pond's surface has calmed, he can see his own reflection for the first time. Just who are you? It asks with sadness. A tear runs down its face and hits the water. The image fades into little ripples. Who are you? Nothing asks again. I'm a cat, a loud voice says. Who is asking? And in the next moment, a large, striped cat climbs out of a bush. He kindly smiles at Nothing. Nothing tries to open his mouth to explain to the cat that it had been talking to himself and doesn't even know who it is, and that it has been lost, and that earlier a large fox sniffed it, and that it is incredibly miserable. But instead, it tears up and suddenly starts sobbing and can't stop anymore. I don't know who I am, it pitifully says. I don't know who I am at all. The cat licks its face. After a while, it calms down again. The cat lies down next to it. And then he tells it everything about himself. That he himself is called Toby, and that his father and grandfather and great-grandfather were called Toby too. I live in this house, he explains. Well, I used to, until today. The family has moved a few houses further down the street. They think I'm lost. Such nonsense. Number 47 or 97, where's the difference? The entire area belongs to me. You want to come along? Nothing snivels one last time and nods. The cat grabs Nothing by its ear stump and jumps with it on the garden wall. He climbs up the branches of a tree. From there, they reach the house's roof, stroll past many chimneys in the moonshine, and jump from rooftop to rooftop. Nothing had never been taken flying, carried by a cat before. We're taking the long way round, pants the cat. That one's more fun. After a while, as Nothing is starting to get dizzy, it suddenly has a thought. It is a very important thought. He has something to do with this cat. The cat jumps over 97's fence and sneaks in through the back door. Inside sits an old man in an armchair, quietly snoring. He is surrounded by a lot of boxes, yet to be unpacked. That is Grandfather, the cat whispers, and it drops Nothing onto the old man's lap. Oh, there you finally are, Grandfather exclaims in relief when he notices the cat. What did you bring me this time? He puts on his glasses. Oh, he calls out in astonishment. Come here, everybody. Look at what Toby found. The little Nothing looks up at Grandfather and suddenly he is certain that he knows him. The family rushes to his side. What is it, Grandfather? What did Toby find? But Grandfather is already eagerly rummaging through the boxes. I know it's somewhere in here, he mumbles. Ah, there it is. He pulls out an old photo album and flips some pages until he finds a picture of a baby. That's me, he says in a proud tone, and that is Toby's great-great-great-great-grandfather, and what I'm holding in my arm there, he gently strokes little Nothing's back. That's little Toby. He was my favorite toy as a child. And at that moment, the little Nothing can finally remember who he is, even though he has no intact ears, no whiskers, no tail, and no stripes anymore. He knows with certainty that he is a plush cat, and that his name actually isn't Nothing. His name is Little Toby. And here you can see how Nothing, after a thorough wash, and with the help of some fabric scraps and needle and string, is more and more restored into Little Toby. When the new baby joins the family, Grandfather carefully lays Little Toby in its crib, and what do you think? The baby immediately starts to chew on the cat's ear. If it was your ear, it would probably hurt a little, but Little Toby loves to finally have somebody again who truly loves him. I think I'm about to fall asleep myself. Good night, Jim. Sleep well. Love you.